Hello, I hope you're having a good day so far. We will now be reading Genesis chapter 21. And the Lord visited Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived, and bare Adam a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old, when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew, and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman, and all that Sarah hath said unto thee. Hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread, and a bottle of water, and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and the child, and sent her away. And she departed, and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water was spent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went, and sat her down over against him, a good way off, as it were a bow shot. For she said, Let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him, and lifted up her voice, and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad. And the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went, and filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I wot not who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it but today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen, and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What mean these 7 ewe lambs, which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, For these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me, that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because there they swear both of them. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba, and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. Now I will summarize what happened in chapter 21. Sarah conceived in old age. She was over 90, as God promised. When the child was born, he was named Isaac. Abraham circumcised Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God commanded. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. God made Sarah to laugh, so all that hear will laugh with her. Sarah saying this out of, ironic, delightful humor. She also humorously says, "Who would have told Abraham that I'd be nursing a child? I've conceived at an old age." So this is in delight. It isn't in disrespect. Abraham had a feast prepared when Isaac was weaned to celebrate the milestone. And then Sarah saw Ishmael mocking Isaac. She demanded to Abraham to send Hagar away and called her a bondswoman, which was meant to be an additional insult. Sarah also demanded that Isaac not be considered an heir to Abraham's wealth. Abraham did not want to send Hagar and Ishmael away, and it grieved his heart. But God told Abraham not to worry. Both Isaac and Ishmael will be fine. Abraham sent Hagar away after giving her bread and water into the wilderness. Hagar wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And then in verse 14, she ran out of water, hid Ishmael in shrubbery, and cried, fearing her son would die in the situation. In verse 16, it says that she sat against, that means away from, in this antiquated text. So she sat away from her son after putting him in the bushes, and she cried. An angel appeared to Hagar, asked her what was wrong, and told her that God heard her and Ishmael's voices. God opened up her eyes, provided a well, and she filled her bottle with water, and she gave Ishmael water. Ishmael then dwelled in the wilderness, became a skilled archer, or a person that is an expert with bow and arrow. Ishmael lived in the wilderness of Paran, and then Hagar found an Egyptian wife for Ishmael. The next verse, Abraham and Sarah was still living in Gerar under King Abimelech, the king that they lied to in chapter 20. But King Abimelech and his captain or army commander Philcol was a political leader. They approached Abraham and they are talking to him about his staying there, how things are going. And so he reminded him that they've treated Abraham well and just asked that he remain honest and his offspring remain honest. And Abimelech wanted to establish the nature of their association, and Abraham agreed. And Abraham then told Abimelech how things were going, that Abimelech's servants have taken over a well that Abraham himself dug and was using. Abimelech didn't know this. And so to provide a token of his word that he was telling the truth, he gave King Abimelech sheep, oxen, and lambs. Ewe lambs or EWE lambs, that is a female lamb. And after this covenant, this is considered a covenant. After that was made, this land was called Beersheba, where Abraham and Abimelech made their covenant that Abraham was not lying about the well. After their discussion, Abimelech and Philcol left, and Abraham planted a grove at Beersheba and called on the name of the Lord. Abraham lived in Abimelech's territory, which is considered Philistine land, for many days. Some additional points I would like to make about this chapter. God blessed Sarah in her old age to both conceive and nurse when she was over 90. This is an example of God's glory because no one could do that but God. There was no in vitro fertilization back then. God had to be the one to provide that. Ironic humor from Sarah, or delightful humor, is acceptable in this chapter. but it was considered disrespectful and displeasing in Genesis 18, verse 13. The incident with Sarah and Hagar, this is evidence that even a woman inviting other women into her marriage is not a good idea. I remembered this story as a child, and it scared me into the idea of entertaining a married man, because you'll never have equal partnership in that relationship. The offspring from those types of unions are not blessed or legitimized. Sarah demanded that Ishmael be written out of the inheritance in verse 10. Sarah most likely overreacted and was most likely a super protective parent of Isaac because she waited so long to have this child. She was considered barren when this story first started. So when she finally had Isaac, she was dumbfounded that she actually conceived at age 90. So she was probably very overprotective of Isaac, and Ishmael was probably being rough, but they're boys. But Sarah most likely overreacted, and this is why you don't get in those types of situations with married people, because you're not an equal partner as the other woman. She calls Hagar a bondswoman, and a bondswoman is the same thing as calling her a slave. It was a derogatory term meant to hurt and insult her because Sarah was angry. All Hagar got when she was sent away was some bread and water. Hagar did not get any cattle. She didn't get any money. Even though she spent her time with Abraham as a servant, and then she was upgraded to wife. In chapter 21, verse 12, it grieved Abraham to send Hagar away. But God provided for Hagar in the wilderness and blessed Ishmael to become a skilled hunter. Hagar found a wife for Ishmael in chapter 21, verse 21. This could have been out of tradition, but even though Hagar came into Abraham and Sarah's marriage as the second woman, she attempted to instill marriage with Ishmael, with her own son, despite her experience. Later on, Abimelech is checking on Abraham's stay when Abraham tells him about the well. And as a token of honesty and to establish a covenant that Abraham won't lie to Abimelech, he gave this king sheep, oxen, and 7 female lambs, just as a token for a king who didn't need it. This king had unlimited resources, and Abraham gave King Abimelech all of this stuff that he didn't need. But Hagar, the mother of his child, the woman in chapter 16, verse 2 and 3, he took as a wife, after he took as a wife and she had his first son. This is the second time he sent Hagar into the wilderness with nothing but water and bread. I don't even think he gave her anything the first time. This story stuck with me when I was a kid and I first read it, and I said, I will never have an Ishmael. I will never be a Hagar. I will never interfere in a marriage. Another thing that this showed was that promises that men have with each other and unions that men have with their wives are always more important to them than a side chick or a child that a side chick has. She's never going to have the same importance in a man's life. And even if she has a child, most likely she'll end up with nothing from him. No support, no protection, not even any money. Abraham didn't even give the woman any money, but gave a king sheep, oxen, just for a covenant? Do not ever believe a woman is ever truly okay with another woman being sexual with her husband. This was Sarah's suggestion for Hagar to become pregnant with Abraham's child. This was Sarah's doing, and Sarah's the one who had a problem with it. Sent another woman out into the wilderness with nothing. And because Abraham loved her so much, he listened to her. But it grieved him. I appreciate you reading chapter 21 with me. We will be going over chapter 22 next.